Om Shanti, good morning. Today, 27th December. Shiv Baba takes birth, but Ravan doesn't. Shiv Baba is someone, and Ravan is a personification. He also talks about the difference between Shiva and Shankar, that how could the two be the same? Because Shankar is symbolic for the bodiless stage. And because Shiv Baba incarnates in the land of India, in the body of the one he calls Brahma, he explains everything. But in the path of bhakti, they do not get it quite right. But in many ways, it's amazing how correct they do get it, because the ideas of bhakti emerge in the Copper Age, and before that, there wasn't anything like that. So the essence is, sweet children, the land of Bharat is the birthplace of the Father, the bestower of happiness. The Father liberates all of you children from sorrow. That means hardship. Question: what great and long elevated story is very common for you children? It's the story of the beginning, the middle, and the end of the drama, which is very long and elevated. Elevated in the sense that everything is included in that. People cannot understand this story, but this story is common for you children. You know it very well. You know how the drama repeats identically and how the cycle of the ladder continues to turn. You know, there is an artist called M.C. Escher, and he has created staircases that keep going up, but they keep going round and round. And so there is something called the Mobius strip, which is also another version of something similar, where you just keep going and keep going, although the item itself is a single line. It's very interesting how a line becomes an endless circle. Now the song is Salutations to Shiva. Om Shanti. You sweetest, long lost, now found children heard the praise in this song. Whose praise? It is the praise of God, the highest on high, who is called the purifier, the remover of sorrow, the giver of happiness. You remember someone who gives you happiness, and you children know that only the one Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, gives happiness. Happiness means prosperity. All people remember him And the people of the different religions also say that the Father comes and liberates everyone from sorrow and gives happiness. But they do not know how the Father gives you happiness, that is, prosperity. The new world becomes old, and then it is called the world of sorrow, hardship. The golden age will definitely come after the end of the Iron Age, and there is just one world. People do not know the cycle of this world at all. And this is why Baba asks, who took away your understanding? Actually, the Father is not the cause of hardship for anyone. The Father always gives happiness. So he teaches pure karma. And through that, you get benefit. You know that the birthplace of the one who gives happiness, prosperity, is Bharat. And the birthplace of the one who causes hardship is also Bharat. So actually, Ravan doesn't take birth, but this, what he symbolizes, begins. So although the people of Bharat celebrate the birth of Shiva, they do not understand. That is the birth of God, the highest on high, and his name is Shiva. No one knows this. Then they burn the effigy of Ravan every year, but they do not know what is Ravan or when did Ravan appear. Why do they burn the effigy of Ravan? They do not know any of this. And according to the plan of drama, they cannot know this. The Father explains, each one has their individual part, and it is the roles of people that are remembered. People have this understanding. Animals would not understand these things. At this time, the people of the world do not have this understanding. They do not know who is the remover of sorrow and the giver of happiness, prosperity, and who is the purifier. They do not know how they became impure, and they do not know how they will become pure. They call out the different names of God, but they do not understand the meaning. So the different names of God correspond to the things that he does, but they don't understand it. At this time, it is the path of devotion. You know, in all the different religions, there are long lists of the names of God. And so this list of the names corresponds to different things that God does. And so this is also useful to prove that God cannot be an energy or omnipresent or something like that, but actually has to be someone. So all these scriptures belong to the path of bhakti, and they do not contain the knowledge that brings about sadgati. They do speak about gyan, bhakti, and vairagya, but they don't know what that refers to. So gyan means the period of the golden age and silver age. Bhakti is the period of the copper age and iron age. And then the confluence age is vairagya, where you let go of everything. So they do know these phrases, but they don't know what they represent. They do not understand the meaning. Only the one Supreme Father, the Supreme Soul, is the ocean of knowledge, So surely he has to give knowledge. No one can know that he is something unless it is played out. So if he is called the ocean of knowledge, then he has to give it. Otherwise, he can't be called the ocean of knowledge. No one would get that idea to call him that. He is the Satguru and the bestower of Sadgati. And this is why people call out to him to come and save them from Durgati. So Sadgati is you go to the right place, and Durgati is you end up very far away from where you should be. So that's the Iron Age. In the Copper Age, we begin as Sato Pradhan worshippers. That means the worship of one alone, and then it multiplies. We continue to decline as we take rebirth. All people definitely descend the ladder. The names of Buddha and the other founders of religion are not referred to in the picture of the ladder. But if they were to be shown, it would also have to be shown how they also decline. They all go through the stages of Sato, Rajo, and Tamo. At this time, everyone is Tamo Pradhan. And the Father explains that the scriptures apply to the path of bhakti, and they refer to and explain about all kinds of rituals, especially one of the Vedas is specifically about what ritual to do, when, under what circumstances, and how, and all this. Only the one Father gives knowledge. Only the ocean of knowledge comes and gives you the true information. For half the cycle, it is called the day, and there is no question of bhakti at that time. And people do not stumble in the day, so at night you can't fall because it's dark. There is only happiness, prosperity, health, wealth. You receive that inheritance from the Father at the confluence age between the cycles. The Father gives this knowledge to the children to whom he gave it in the previous cycle. And he will continue to give it in this way every cycle. It will sit in the intellects only of these ones that the Creator is giving the knowledge of the creation. In the path of bhakti, they make many images and they make calendars. This word calendar actually is Baba's word for posters, because what they used to do in India, and they still do, but they used to do more in the 60s and 50s, is they would make pictures of different gods and goddesses, big ones, and then they stick a calendar on the end of it. And then at the end of the year, they take off the calendar and keep the poster. And so the posters got to be called calendars because of that. So anything new continues to spread. The Father, the Creator, has now come in Bharat and is giving the knowledge of the Creator and the creation. And this will also spread and go to everyone. And then no one will be able to ask, why cannot we go to heaven? Because everyone will know who comes when. The drama is predestined, and there can be no change in it. There are many different concepts in the world. Some speak of nature. That means they know that there is the energy of matter, and they call that nature, and they call that God. So the energy of matter is what all these different healers and so on, they tap into that. So then others say that souls are immune to the effect of action. So right now, the energy of matter is very Tamil Pradhan. So people who tune into it are also very Tamil Pradhan. So at the end, they will only listen to the one Father. They will understand that they are truly actors in this drama. This is a tree of the variety of the religions. The lock on everyone's intellect will open. They will understand these things. So this opening up of people's minds is also predestined. So the locks are now closed. And the question of your dharma is separate. According to the plan of drama, those of the other religions cannot go to heaven. The founder of their religion came at such and such a time, I mean, after heaven was over. And it is only from the picture of the tree and not from the picture of the ladder that all these things will enter into their understanding. The tree is very good. And they will understand that this drama is predestined. But you understand about yoga. When you remember the Father and become pure, then the sins are neutralized. When you become immersed in yoga, you will come to know about yourself. When you're in good yoga for a long time and you've finished all the eruptions of all the negative karma, then you will understand that you are not who you thought you were. Because who you thought you were corresponds to your current identity and your sense of self based on the sanskaras that you were given as you were raised in your family and the effect of life. But when you become free from that, then you realize that you're not that person at all. Right? As you make further progress, everyone will understand the knowledge of the Creator and the creation, but not now. So it's also fixed in drama that BKs cannot understand Gyan as well as they will later. And they can't explain it as well as they will later, right? Because things open up and it's a phenomenon. The drama has been created very cleverly. The war has to take place. Now, at the moment, all over the internet, they're starting to talk about nuclear war and how many nuclear bombs there are and what happens and all these details, so you can find out. You now have the secrets of the drama in your intellects. When a new person comes, everything has to be explained from the beginning. But this is a very long story, a big story, and it is very elevated. But for you, it is very common. You hear about it every day. You know how the cycle of the ladder turns. So if you look at that picture of the ladder, you can see that when you're going down, it takes a long time. And then there is this line, which Baba sometimes refers to as an elevator, which takes you back to the beginning, which shows you that the ladder is also a cycle. So the Father says, sweet children, you went through so much hardship on the path of devotion, and that is also fixed in the drama. this play of happiness and sorrow is about you. You become very elevated, and you also become very degraded. The Father says, "Sweet children, I am the seed of this human world tree. I definitely have all the knowledge of the tree." And there is also the example of the banyan tree. It's a very specific banyan tree in Calcutta, which is very enormous and which was damaged by a storm in 1925, which broke the connection with the trunk. So the sannyasis also give examples, but they don't have clarity about what the example means in their intellects. You know how the original deity civilization vanishes. And that foundation is no longer here, but the rest of the tree is still standing. So all the religions are there, but that one original dharma civilization is not there. So you can see this banyan tree of Calcutta. There's no trunk. The trunk is broken and rotten, but it stands on the lateral roots, and so it's always green. But without a trunk, all other trees would dry up because they cannot get water without a trunk. But this banyan tree still survives and remains fresh. It is a wonder. So it is a wonder. In the same way, the deity dharma no longer exists in this tree. So Hinduism is a very interesting combination of what this Shankaracharya's taught through the Vedas, and then what is left over from the old pre-Vedic myths and stories. So they themselves do not understand, and they cannot call themselves people of the deity dharma, so they call themselves Hindus. So Hindu means people who, what the people do who are living in the area around the river Indus. So you see this picture, the whole thing is just one tree, and you can't imagine. Yeah, it jumped over the fence, didn't care about any limitations. So since the kingdom of Ravan began, they were not able to call themselves of the deity dharma. It's called Adi Sanatan Devta Dharma, but they couldn't say they're deities because they were impure. So they changed their name and called themselves Hindus. The only signs that remain of the deities are their images, their statues of deities in the temples, from which it can be understood that it was at one time their kingdom in heaven. But no one knows exactly when heaven was. They don't have the dates. They have prolonged the duration of the golden age. Whatever has passed, it will repeat at its own time. The same features, the faces and bodies of the deities cannot exist now. Only in heaven will they be there, because the quality of matter changes, so the quality of bodies corresponds to the quality of matter, as well as it's impacted by your karma. So only you understand this knowledge. All the devotees continue to become impure while performing devotion, because their knowledge of God is incorrect, so they create negative karma with God, so that's a problem. then they don't have correct understanding about each other, so they create negative karma with each other. Then they get negative karma with matter, even while performing devotion. So there was the pure world, and the Father is sitting here explaining to you. People say to God, you are Jani Janan Har, means you know what's going on inside everyone's private life and in their minds. So the Father says, I do not sit here looking at what's going on in everyone's heart and mind and private life. Some say, Baba, you know everything. So when we indulge in vice, you must know all about that. And the Father says, would I sit here through the day to know all these things? I have come to purify the impure. So Shiv Baba is not a human, so he does not know things as they occur, or he doesn't know things by observing them. He knows things in advance. He knows who's who, who's what, and their sanskaras. So it's a different way of knowing. You know that you are receiving the inheritance of happiness from Baba. That means the golden age. And the others will return to the world of nirvana, the world of mukti, liberation. And people ask, how will they go back? And he says, that's not your problem. Don't worry about it. Only the Father comes and takes you to liberation and then sends you to liberation in life. Everyone must settle their accounts and return back. And you have to become Sato Pradhan. So do not be concerned about the matters of others. Only the one Father makes everyone Sato Pradhan from Tamo Pradhan. You know, there are most people who are religiously inclined, and a very large proportion of BKs is concerned about helping people. And this is what Baba's referring to. This is God's job, not your job. Do your job, because if you try and do God's job, you will not be able to do your job. And anyway, you can't do God's job. So do your job, and then there'll be success. There cannot be any knowledge on the path of devotion. Now, the devotees speak of Gyan and Bhakti. So then ask them, for how long is the period of Gyan? And for how long is the period of Bhakti? They will not be able to tell you anything. Bhakti is separate from Gyan. You know, they say that Bhakti is going on since time immemorial, since the beginning of time. But no. The Father himself comes and explains how he comes and into whom he enters. But because of being trapped on the path of devotion and bhakti, people hardly recognize me. And this is why you have to explain the picture of the difference between Shiva and Shankar. Because they have combined the two and said that Shiva and Shankar are one and the same. But in fact, one is resides in the subtle region, and the other resides in the supreme abode. So they don't even live in the same place. So how can they be the same person? Each is separate. And how could both have the same name? One is incorporeal and the other is subtle. And you cannot say that Shiva entered into Shankar, nor can you say that Shiva and Shankar are one and the same. The Father explains, I enter into Brahma. Who told you that Shiva and Shankar are one and the same. So there is somebody who came up with that idea. No one can call Shankar God the Father. Now, Shankar is famous for being the destroyer, and God is called the benefactor. So look what they have made, how they have made his image. So he's usually painted blue, and he has snakes around his neck, and he's meditating, and he doesn't have any clothes on. And sometimes they put a tiger skin on him, or sometimes he's sitting on a tiger skin. He has a little thing to lean on, and like that. And they also show him riding a bull. Now, no one at all would believe Shankar is God. Only Shiv Baba fulfills everyone's desires on the path of bhakti. But for Shankar, they say he opened his third eye and then there was destruction. So that doesn't fulfill anybody's desires, right? And there are no snakes or bulls in the subtle region. These animals belong to the earth. But people have got such stone intellects, and they don't even understand that they are impure. So the Father says, I have come to uplift the sages, the sadhus and saints and sages. They do sadhana, the spiritual practice, and they do that, or tapasya, for the purpose of achieving something. So how can they then call themselves Shiva or God? He's the giver. He has everything. So he wouldn't do anything to achieve something. Shiva doesn't need to make any spiritual endeavor, do any tapasya or anything. But Shankar is doing tapasya. So the names of these people who tell these things are sannyasis. And so would God ever have to be a sannyasi? Or be a renunciate? Those who are renunciates, they wear saffron robes. Now, would God have to wear saffron clothes? He is the purifier. And he says, I even uplift those who wear those costumes. So according to the drama, each one plays his own part. And whatever people do on the path of bhakti, they don't understand anything. No one can achieve sadgati by studying the scriptures. Sadgati, achieving the right destination, is only received from the one true Father. So according to the drama, the scriptures are necessary. Look what they have written in the Gita. No one knows who spoke the Gita. So your main focus of attention is the Gita. The Gita is the jewel of the scriptures. No one knows who created the Gita, or when it was created, or what happened as a consequence of it. Whatever has been written in the Gita continues to repeat. That means the Great World War. We are not saying whether it's good or bad, but we do understand that it's included in the equipment of the path of devotion through which people continue to decline. And while taking the full cycle of 84 births, we descended, we declined. And when all the actors have declined, when they've all come down from the soul world and played their parts, the Father comes at the end to take everyone back. And this is why he is called the purifier and the bestower of salvation for all. And when he comes, he speaks the knowledge He tells the knowledge of the Creator and the beginning, the middle, and end of the creation. And the Father is now sitting here teaching you. Due to Maya, you forget this again and again. God teaches us and makes us into the masters of the world. So there should be great happiness. This knowledge will not be there in the golden age. And on the path of devotion, the same scriptures of bhakti will reappear. That role of bhakti has to be played for 2,500 years. You know the knowledge of the cycle, but people do not know the purifier. They do not know who makes them impure from pure either. Who, or you can say what, because we cannot say that anyone is responsible. These are personifications. They make toys and continue to play with them because they don't understand anything. They would tell you, you too are people of Bharat. So how can you say that only the people of Bharat do not understand anything? So you tell them that the Unlimited Father is saying this. He is giving us knowledge, and we have acquired this understanding through him. Many people come to the exhibitions and they say the knowledge is very good, but when they go out, they forget it. And this is because they are influenced by the force of Ravan. You now are following Ram. It is in the intellects of you children that the Father, the Creator, is explaining to you. He is making us pure from impure. The Father is benefiting us. And so we have to benefit others. The more you benefit others, the higher the status you claim. This is called spiritual service. Everything must be explained to spirits, souls understand. You become body conscious for half the cycle. When you're soul conscious, you do experience happiness for half the cycle. And when you're body conscious, you experience sorrow. There is a lot of difference. When you were masters of the world, there were no other religions. Now the population is very large, and you are at the confluence age. Acha. To the sweetest beloved, long lost and now found children, love, remembrance, and good morning from the mother, the father, Bapdada. The spiritual father says namaste to the spiritual children. The spiritual children say namaste to the spiritual father. So settle all your karmic accounts with the power of remembrance, become Sato Pradhan, and return home. Do not be concerned about, it says do not get involved in other matters, but this refers to the situation of the people of other religions. And this is what is mentioned there. Secondly, stay in the happiness that God is teaching us and making us into the masters of the world. Do spiritual service. The blessing is, may you be simple and become a sample and reveal your greatness through your ordinariness. When a simple thing is clean, it attracts. In the same way, the thoughts of your mind, your relationships, interactions, your way of living, when they are simple and clean, you become a sample and you attract others. So simple means ordinary. Actually, it doesn't mean ordinary at all. Simple means simple, simple and ordinary. Sadharan doesn't mean ordinary. It means that you are not into luxury and decoration and all that. But ordinary doesn't mean that. Ordinary means you don't understand anything. So it's not a good word to use. So, but your greatness is revealed through your simplicity. And those who are, says here, not ordinary, it means people who are very worldly, they become a problem, which is true. Because they have different values. And the slogan is, when you say my Baba from your heart and your eyes, when you say my Baba from your heart, then the state of being unconscious, where you couldn't see anything because of Maya, these eyes that were closed because of being unconscious because of Maya, they will open. So you will see the reality of what's going on. Baba's language is extremely poetic, and it has a lot of meaning, multiple layers of meaning. And if you translate it in that way, you become progressively more religious in a rather simplistic manner. Which means that the kind of people who will go for it wouldn't understand too much. So, but actually, Raj Yoga is very, very deep. And it's very interesting that, you know, who can become a Raj Yogi is someone who has developed over 5,000 years. So very, very ancient people who are used to the civilization of paradise and who developed many, many ways to find out what is really truth over the 2,500 years of bhakti. And as you got more and more people coming down from the soul world, the quality of those souls is less deep, and they don't have the experience of paradise. They don't have the experience of the contrast of soul consciousness and body consciousness. And then the overwhelming majority of people who, like half the world population, has arrived in the last 60, 70 years. So that's a large number of people with almost no experience of life on earth. Very, very superficial, very body conscious, chaotic, noisy, troublesome, violent, and shallow. And so it's like that. So this has influenced the atmosphere. And then the question arises, I think, in many people who study Raj Yoga, that what is this and what are we supposed to do with this? So one thing is you're making your own personal progress because you understand who you are. There are very, very few souls who are this kind, real Raj Yogis. But Baba has said you have to make this knowledge available to the whole world. And so then what would be your angle on that? I mean, one angle is to make it really simple so that people who are uneducated and very body conscious could get something from it maybe that'll work, maybe it won't work. So that's one angle on it. But then you have to see for yourself what you think, what you feel, because now there are so many different angles on what is service, so many different angles on what is the right thing to do, so many different angles on what Raj Yoga really is. So you have to think. And so it's a question. Do we have any questions? Okay, why Baba says knowledge, devotion, and disinterest? This is not Baba who's saying it. He's quoting something that is said in bhakti. So Hindu bhakti, like most of the religions, is made up of a huge amount of quotations. And these are like sayings, aphorisms that form the main underpinning of the religion, whatever it is, whichever religion, they operate like that. Because what you do to teach people religion is you teach them these little aphorisms. And then when they've got a big collection of aphorisms, then they think that they have the religion, they know the religion. So this is, you can say, general public would know that. And Baba also picks specific aphorisms that refer to what he's talking about. Because the way that he teaches is he's teaching people who don't understand, who don't know how to think, who don't know how to process information, who don't know how to analyze, who only know how to learn something by heart, and who have blind faith, and who don't know that what they believe is incoherent. And so it's really difficult for God to communicate to people whose condition is like this, a condition of the intellect. And so his way is to go with these aphorisms that they know, that they believe in implicitly, and that they don't understand. And so they all know there's Gyan, Bhakti, and Vairagya. So they already accepted that. And then he says, okay, you know there's Gyan, Bhakti, and Vairagya. What is that? And then he makes them, he forces them to admit that they don't know what they're talking about. And then he says, shall I tell you what it means? And then some of them say, yes. And so he says, okay, put that aphorism on these images that he gives. So he has all the information is contained in the cycle, the tree, the Trimurti, and the ladder, and the Lakshmi and Narayan picture. Everything is contained in those pictures. And so if you take the cycle as a circle divided into 4, and he says this represents time. This is day and night. And then there's also dawn. Between the night and the day, you have the dawn. And so the day is Gyan, the night is Bhakti, and the dawn is Vairagya. And so you know there's Gyan, Bhakti, and Vairagya, so this is what it means. And day and night are of equal duration. So in Bhakti, they say, heaven was thousands and billions and gazillions of years ago, and it was very, very long. And hell is now just starting, and it has 40,000 years to go. And where did they get this idea from? It was created during the last 1,000 years in the Vedantic India, Vedic India. And so they hear these things from the gurus. And the gurus will give lectures in which they make declarations, and they will declare such and such a statement many times. And so it goes into the devotees. So when they leave the lecture, they remember these declarations or slogans, but they don't know what they mean. But they've heard it so many times that they've absorbed it, and then they start to quote it. And they don't even know that they don't know what they're talking about. And then if any bright spark says, "What are you talking about?" they say, "Don't ask questions. That's disrespectful." You see. And so that's the system. So you can understand that for God to come and teach the humans is not an easy thing. And there's so many different types, and so few are actual deity souls, and not just the what he calls the subjects, but deity souls who are the kings. How many kings do you need? Not too many, right? And so these are the ones who will understand Gyan properly. You don't know how many, but what he does tell us is, look, there's 8 who understand really properly. Then there's 108 who understand pretty well. And there's 16,108 who understand adequately. And there's 900,000 who get it to some extent. And then all the rest not. So that's very, very small. And then when you have a class, a BK class, and you have somebody reading the Murli, the people do not have the capacity for concentration. Some people, they learn how to concentrate from the angle of repeating what they hear. So some people have learned that quite well. But I did not encounter very many at all who could process the ideas. And the best one of all is Dadi Janki, and then Dadi Gulzar, very good, but she didn't often speak at that level. And most of the Dadis, when I was living in India, I had to do tricks to get them to believe that the people I wanted them to talk to were intelligent enough to understand things at a higher level. And otherwise, they would drop down to talk to people as if they're uneducated villagers. And I don't quite know why that was the way they were, but the overwhelming majority of BKs in India are like that. And then you have some who are bright, but there's what Jagdish Bai spoke of as intellectual consciousness as opposed to spiritual consciousness. So these people, a so-called intellectual consciousness, would mix up bhakti and gyan and call it gyan. And then there's quite a lot of Westerners who do that too. And so what you end up with is lots of different levels of gyan, we can say. And then the question arises, okay, at what level do you want to do this? And that becomes, I think, a personal decision. And it has to be a personal decision. And if you have access to the knowledge properly, then you can study at the level that it means all the way to the topmost level. And so then that's what makes it also number wise. And that's the way it is, because every soul has a different capacity for processing the gyan. Yeah. But it's intriguing, no? What is the relationship with the Sat Guru? Traditionally, first of all, let me say, that he talks about father, teacher, and Sat Guru. And these are the most influential energies in a person's life, because who plays the role of your father has to raise you, give you your identity, your social standing, and set you up in life from childhood. Then your teacher has to, and your father also has to give you an inheritance, money and property, land. And your teacher has to give you education so that you can stand on your feet and make your money and understand something about the world. The Sat Guru, or a guru, is very often takes the form of a teacher. It can be a religious teacher or a teacher of anything else. That means somebody who teaches you to a very high level. But the Sat Guru is the one who prepares you for your death. And so our relationship with the Sat Guru, Shiv Baba, the Sat Guru, is that when you're in relationship with the Father, he's fairly, he'll keep you in line, but he will not hold you to account that extremely. Your teacher will hold you to account much more extremely because you have exams and all of this. But the Satguru will hold you to account to the fullest extent. And so your relationship with the Satguru, if you're not clean, there's a problem. Because he will call you to account for every last little thing. Because the Satguru is the one who declares your result at the end, and who your relationship with the Satguru is a kind of contract, a social contract, which is that you will do what he says all the way. Because his contract is he's preparing you for your final death, not for one along the way, but your final death. So your final death is when you pass out of the human cycle of karma and reincarnation, and that you finish all your sins. So there has to be full ego death. There has to be perfectly pure karma. You remember the Murli that we had yesterday? It was a very, very good explanation of what you're really supposed to be doing in your mind, very accurately, because otherwise you cannot go to God. You see, so the Satguru is that relationship with God where you can actually go to God. That means you have to be at his level. And so most people are more comfortable with the Father, the friend, playmate, and this kind of friendly God. But Satguru is serious. And so a lot of people, they don't really want to be that serious. It's okay. But then there's some people, they say, well, if I can go to the top, then let me go. And so they will be more interested in the Satguru. But then you have to take all this quite seriously, because you will be called to account.
So on the same line, Sadguru and the Sadgati.
Mm-hmm. So Sadgati and Sat Guru. One is a D, one is a T. But still, Sad and Sat is the same. And Sadgati is that you reach the right destination. So on one hand, the right destination can be you go to the golden age or the silver age. But the best sadgati of all is you get the highest possible status in the golden age, which is Brahma Baba gets that status of Krishna. So that's the best sadgati. And then whatever is coming down after that. So this is why Baba says you have to be concerned about your status, because your status is the indicator of the level at which you've understood the knowledge and applied it. And so what he's saying is, look, you've had 5,000 years playing around, enjoying yourself, and then you got into big trouble, and then you called me, so here I am, and now I've opened my school, and I'll take you to the very, very top. If you want to go, you can, and I will tell you how to get there. And so the Sadgati is the destination. So when he says this word, Tumhara Gat Mat Nyara, this is one of the aphorisms, like the other one, Gyan Bhakti and Vairagya. So in the English translation, they say your ways and means are unique, but nobody understands what that is because there's no such thing. So you have to really look at what he's really talking about, which is that the information that he gives, mat, is concepts. So he gives you information and concepts which are totally different from the concepts of Vedanta, which is materialist. And these is the laws of spirituality that he gives. This is called mat. Shri Mat, the highest information. And then Gut is where you will go if you get that information and you apply it. You see, so that is the Sadgati which the Satguru will give. And there isn't anything higher. It's the toppest thing. And you see, most BKs don't really operate at this level. The Dadis did. But I don't think there's too many people who are operating at this level at this time. But yet it's needed to keep the level of spiritual energy up. Because you see, Shiv Baba operates through us. And so if we do not become receivers and transmitters, then it won't work so well. So it's a good thing to do that.
So one more question on the context of Smriti, Sthiti, Vritti, Drishti, Kriti, Srishti. So that the word Sthiti there and Gat, Mat, these three words, Gati, Mati, Sthiti. So what's the difference between Gati and Sthiti?
Well, usually for Sthiti, it's your stage of consciousness. So in our practice, we talk quite a lot about building your stage. And so your stage is a level. And what happens in practical terms is you're on a sort of ground level most of the time, basic body conscious, normal human life. And what you're trying to do is raise your level so that your stage of consciousness corresponds to something that is Sato Pradhan. And you can go there for a second or two and then come back down again. And so the idea is you go there and you increase the amount of time that you spend there. But then the more you go up, the more Maya will take you down. And so you have to, what's called as accumulate. You have to accumulate power so that you are more up and you never really come all the way down. But practical situation is there's always going to be something that's going to throw you down to the floor. There will be something. Then you have to get back up again. And so different BKs who are practicing these things seriously, they experiment a lot. You know, Baba talked about the importance of experimenting with yoga. And one problem is that people don't really know what meditation is. And so then they try various things, but they never really get off the ground, but they do please themselves. So getting off the ground is you go into a different vibration, which other serious yogis can recognize if you're in it or if you're not in it. And it creates a very powerful vibration. So why you go to Madhuban is because that vibration is there. But when you have like too many people in Madhuban, then they wreck it. And so what we would do in Madhuban is, there's a certain period of time when all these tourists come and they invade the whole thing like a tsunami of who knows what. And they go everywhere like water, everywhere. Because it's quite a small place. And when you have thousands of people running around, it's very different. They bring their vibration and they come not as yogis, but just as tourists. Then you close the gates at a certain time, and then all the yogis reset the vibration, and you can reset it. But if on a daily basis you break it, reset it, break it, reset it, and eventually you'll say, is that what we want to be doing? And Baba has predicted that a time will come when everything becomes really very strict. He calls it strict, that only real yogis can go there, because a time will come when you really need to bring that atmosphere to a very, very high energy level. So your stage, your sthiti, is this setting of yourself to get to that high energy level and stay there. And so you build your stage by a combination of your study, your meditation practice, your development of being able to manage living in a gathering of people where there's lots of karmic accounts, lots of clash of values, lots of different vibrations, and. So you become solid, you see, because you have to be very resilient to all the things that try to pull you down from inside and outside and upside and downside and everywhere, so that you're really going against the trend of the world, which is taking people down. So your sthiti is going up and up and up and holding it so that nothing can pull you down. The drama, the story has always existed and repeats. First of all, there's no chance that newcomers can understand this, because even the old ones take forever to get it. And so I don't think our concern is to make newcomers understand this. I think our concern is for ourselves to understand it. Because if you understand it really, really well, it will do something to your stage. And a newcomer will feel something from your stage much more readily than understand something that you say. Nowadays, I find that your stage has more impact than what you say. I think it's always been like that. A relationship with the Father is one gender-free consciousness, but emphasis on wife and husband bring back gender consciousness. Well, it's not really about gender. It's about, in your relationship with your father, it means you have rights. So it's all about claiming your rights to the inheritance. And a lot of people don't claim their rights. So he's getting you to claim your rights. Wife means you want to harmonize with the husband. And in humans, they decided they want all the women to harmonize with the men. And so that whatever the men want, that's okay. And whatever the women want, it's not okay. So they thought they could create happiness that way. So it may have worked for a while, but it's not really very effective. But when you are having that relationship according to that idea of how a wife surrenders to the husband, it is like that you surrender to God. Because you see, the people are not gender free. The people are very gender conscious, and they're trained by the social system to have consciousness according to how they're told to have consciousness. And so the women are much more easily able to surrender to God than the men, because the men are used to being surrendered to, not surrendering to someone. And so he says, all of you are brides, men and women, all are brides, and you all have to surrender to me. But because of all this background training and so on, it's easier for the women to do that. Then he says, you're all big warriors. So all the brothers say, yes, we are big brothers and warriors. And the sisters say, oh, no, we're not. He says, get going. You have to be. So he would, through these ways, he would teach the sisters to be less limited by all the training they get to be female and not have any rights and do what you're told and let yourself be pushed around and all of this. And then the males, they are trained to be the boss and push people around and that sort of thing. So the socialization of these traditional family systems creates this huge polarity between males and females. And what he's looking to in the Golden Age is that there's hardly any difference between males and females. Lakshmi and Narayan, some people, they look at that picture and they say, who are these two women? Because they look like they've got women's clothes and they have long hair. Lakshmi has longer hair than Narayan, but I don't know what it'll really be in the Golden Age. It's really just his way to get people to be closer and less of an adversarial relationship between the males and the females. The daddies studied for 14 years away from other people. Definitely it did prepare them, because the daddies had not just only 14 years of tapasya, but out of that tapasya, there were 300 people in that tapasya. And out of those, a few became the daddies, just a handful. And they continued to get a lot of deep training from Baba. And then they took these positions, and out of the daddies, it became like smaller and smaller and smaller group. And the top daddies were really Didi Manmohini, Dadi Janki, Dadi Prakashmani, Dadi Nirmal Shanta, Dadi Gulzar, but even daddies like Ganga and Manohar, they were not quite at that level ultimately. Because, I saw Dadi Janki, Dadi Gulzar, and Dadi Prakashmani go all the way to the top. and maybe Dadi Chandramani also. But I mean, when you get to the top, the heavy duty exams you get are really heavy. And it's difficult to handle them because you're very elderly and your body's not doing too well and your mind is not as good as it was. So there's very high level exams you get at that time, and then you die. You have to die properly. You've got to be in full command to die properly. So not so easy, Raj Yoga. Yes, you must learn how to die here. And Didi Manmohini was very interested in that. She was a philosopher. Didi could see everybody's mind, exactly what's going on, you know. So if you go in front of Didi, you better be brave because she will see everything what's going on in your mind. And she would oblige you to be at the right level. And this is the thing with Baba and the Dadis is they wouldn't help you up. They would command you to be up. And in those days, that was okay. So it was really like a traditional guru who would say, you do this, no ifs, ands, or buts, and don't tell me you're tired or sick or anything. Get up there and stay up there and don't ask any questions. So that was how we were trained in those days. I don't think that's happening now. But I got in just under the wire where they were still training people like that. And Chandruban had that kind of training as well. Dadi Janki was the trainer, Dadi Janki, Dadi Chandramani, especially. They were tough. You had to be able to handle very tough, like if you were they have these military people, like in England, they have the Delta Force, and here in the States, there's something else. I forgot what it's called. Navy SEALs. Yeah, the SEALs. Thank you, Annie. The SEALs. They are, and our level has to be like that. The SEALs, they have incredible weapons on their bodies at all times. They do physical training all the time. They're either at war or training. And you've got to be able to shoot so that you can hit a target accurately at 2 miles. And you have to know really how to use these very high-tech weapons. And you have to be able to go in and come out invisibly. And you have to be physically very, very durable and mentally very stable because you're in very chaotic, dangerous situations most of the time. Can you share how you meditate, how to meditate accurately? Well, I do that more or less every day. You need to tune the knowledge so deep that you get these insights which carry you to that high stage that Harshabai is talking about. And you get up there and you stay up there and you neutralize all the opposition. In BKs, there are all sorts of different people because Baba's making a civilization. So you need all kinds to make a world. And so you need good rulers, you need good business people, you need good artists, you need good cooks, you need good gardeners, you need good travelers, every possible thing you need good. And all the different sanskaras. So it's kind of like the Noah's Ark with all different kinds of people, not all different kinds of animals.
Today Baba said, when we remember the Father and become pure, our sins will be resolved. When you become immersed in yoga, you will come to know about yourself.
Right.
So that was just wonderful. points today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So on that note, can you elaborate more on that immersed in yoga?
In the picture of the stages of yoga, that would be a concentration stage. Because when you're in the concentration stage, the thoughts are flowing really well. You don't have any distraction, nothing to move away. So you're arriving at the destination of the realization. So I think that this full immersion in yoga is that concentration stage, and then it takes you to arrive and you will know yourself. You see, because how you are at the moment is not your real self. And it's so, it's such a total identity that people don't really know that that's not the real self. Because your total identity is corrupted and compromised by this thing that he calls ego, which is to do with different ways in which you handle how you were formed by your life experience, which takes you away from the real self. And so ideally, life experience makes you who you are, but for most people, it takes you away from who you are because it makes you something that's really not you. It's very much influenced by, people have strategies for getting what they want. Some people, they discover that if they're nasty to people, they'll get what they want. So they develop that. Some people, they discover that if they're manipulative and seductive, they get what they want. So they develop that. Some people, they have a lot of problems, and so they distance themselves from their real self. So they become something completely artificial, and nobody knows quite what it is. And they have a lot of problems because it's a very disconnected type of identity. And so with the yoga, you return to your original condition, which means you return to who you really are. And that's, but arriving there, you have to pass, you have to go through your pain, you have to go through all of these distortions, because life will do things to you that bends you out of shape. And you have to get back to what you were. And that process is not so easy. It looks nice. You get immersed in yoga like a nice bubble bath, but it's not really like that. But there are times when it really is like that. But it's also, we have to come to terms with the fact that it's a big purification process, which means it's fire, it's water, it's purging, it's all sorts of things. And every so often it's ecstasy, and every so often it's agony. And every so often it's like flat, nothing's happening. It's like you try and meditate, nothing's happening. You can't get lift off. You can't get interested in any point of gyan to churn. You're kind of, what do I do? That's something that happens every so often. Thank you, everyone.